Hello, we are Team Mundane. I'm Dimitra.
And I'm Damon.
And we're going to walk you through the steps that we took to create our 3 atmospheres and moods. We decided to focus on the mundane, the domestic, and the normal. And we wanted to evoke the emotions of saudade, which is similar to nostalgia, serenity, and the eerie. So we decided to focus on a change of materiality and texture in the images, and of kind of distinct and strong light sources, as well as framed or reflected views. We were kind of drawn to these precedent images because it's kind of a layered technique of showing different atmospheres or different environments or traces of things that have happened. And finally, we used lighting to create the different atmospheres and chose objects that could explain some kind of narrative or evoke some kind of memory.
So this is the scene we built. It was originally based on Shaker architecture, where we took inspiration from the craftsmanship, the build quality, and the general aesthetic that was created in these unique historic scenes. As we continued to model the scene, we took in elements from the 60s and 70s settings, adding this wallpaper from the 60s, but putting in cracks and fading paints on the wall to suggest that it might be even older. In addition, we also mixed in some eclectic tastes, as you would expect from a nostalgic bedroom scene. We composed a mix of this rocking chair, this 50s or 60s style TV, carpets, anachronistic books, and composed them together in the scene.
So using Shaker architecture as inspiration, we decided to model a really simple scene that would refer to the outside through views to trees, and would simply contain 2 spaces, one being the primary space of the bedroom, and the second space being a kind of transitional space that would create this series or sequence of framed views that we were aspiring towards. In order to create the 3 different moods, we did a combination of things. One was playing with the lighting. The second was changing the views. Right. So if we walk you through the specific views or atmospheres themselves, starting with saudade. As I mentioned, we focused on like a zoomed in view to show the texture of the wall and to kind of highlight a strong light coming in from the window. We thought that to kind of create this feeling of nostalgia, we would use picture frames and exclude the majority of the model just to yeah. Okay. So the next view, which is serenity, is more zoomed out. Here we can see outside of the window into nature, and this also allowed us to bring in a kind of misty atmospheric light. Also, you get more of kind of idea of the materials of the room, and this was always conceived to be like a dawn setting just after waking up. And finally, the last view, which is eerie, takes advantage of these series of framed views by allowing the viewer to look outside through that transitionary space. And we really focused on creating this idea of suspense or kind of uncanniness by having that door slightly ajar with the light coming through it. We used animation and keyframes to create disorder in the room, so to kind of suggest a trace of something that had happened, a murder or something strange.
So, in order to illuminate our scene, we have a series of 5 lights, 2 that are ambient, one that is photometric inside this lampshade, one V-rate light that serves as our sunlight outside the window, and one alien light inside the closet that will give us the eerie greenish glow that we want for one of our scenes. And in order to alternate between the three moods that we had set up, Saudade, Serenity, and Eerie, we can simply modify the brightness of each of these lights. And for example, Serenity, we have 100 and 100 for the roof and floor ambient, 0 for the alien lights, and 250 for the bright sunlight coming from the window, and 0 for the lamp. And for the Eerie mood that we're setting up, it's the opposite, with very low levels of light for the roof and floor ambience, and slightly bright alien light coming from the closets, and no sunlight, and a lamp that's very bright. And so, using this very simple system, we can swap between our three different moods very easily. So this is the scene that we rendered out to illustrate the mood of Serenity. And after we got out our final rendering, we found it necessary to bring it into Photoshop for a bit of post-processing. As you can see, the lighting qualities in the V-Ray renderer, they could use a bit of touch-up. It's way too dark along this wall and along this hallway, and we could use a much better tree. The one that comes with 3D Max is terrible, and we could also change the light qualities along the walls to bring out the textures that we made, and create the effects and the mood that we really want. So our first step was to bring into Photoshop the output channels that V-Ray rendered out for us, the shadows, refraction, lighting, and so on. And as we began to overlay them on top of each other, we have separate pieces that we can modify individually in terms of the blending option, the opacity film, the levels, and the hue and saturation. Each of them giving its own quality to the lighting or the refraction individually, and that helped us very, very specifically modify our scene to create the kind of eclectic shaker architecture, the mix of domestic versus the historic scene that we wanted to create. When we got to a point where we felt satisfied with how the image was laid out and how the lighting was set up, we went on to replace this tree that's outside, that you can see outside the window here. So we found from our collection of photos this beautiful tree that we decided that we needed to add to our scene, and we did that very simply with the lasso tool, and place that outside. In addition, we also wanted to add another window along this wall to make it seem as the mirror is actually reflecting something. We were actually trying to aim the camera towards it, but couldn't actually get it there. And so that's one extra bit that Photoshop can do for us.